Hello, welcome, and thanks for joining. This is the launch of Tigers Live, broadcasting from the Tigers Den here within the Peugeot Ashfield Stadium. Tigers Live, bringing you all the news, views and interviews as we build up to the 2017 season. I'm Derek Smith, and I'm delighted to co-host Tigers Live launch this evening. And here is my co-host, Mr. Brian Copeland. Brian, we're on here already. What can we look forward to over the course of the next hour or so?
Thank you, Derek. Well, we've got a packed show for you. The Tigers lineup will be discussed, who we've got in the lineup so far. We'll also be looking at some big changes and investments happening in the stadium over the winter. We'll be looking at the championship teams and how the rest of the opposition are shaping up ahead of the new season. We will have an announcement on our Facebook winner later on, the competition that we ran during the week for a merchandise voucher. And most excitingly, around about 7:30, we will be making an announcement on our latest signing to join the 2017 lineup.
Thank you, Brian. Lots to pack in over the next hour or so. Tigers Live, we want to be highly interactive, so we need your participation. Wherever you happen to be, whichever team you happen to support, we would like you to take part in proceedings tonight. Quite simply, get onto Facebook and send us some messages, send us some thoughts on your team. Are you delighted with your team building, disappointed or a bit frustrated? Let us know. We look forward to receiving your comments.
Well, we don't want to just focus on the Tigers. We want anyone from clubs across the country to get in touch. Let us know where you're watching from, and leave some comments on your own club or the Tigers. We want to cover all elements of Speedway tonight, and we've got a busy show ahead. So we're going to start off with taking a look at who the Tigers have announced as their signings so far. A few familiar faces to those of you who are watching at home. The first to be announced, I think, was Aaron Summers, our captain, who finished the season at number 1, and I'm sure most fans delighted to see him back in the red and white stripes. We've also got Richie Worrell, who was proved a huge success last season in Tigers colours. Again, I think most people were delighted to see him back. And completing that potent top 3 for the Tigers is Richard Lawson, a familiar face to all of us here again at the Tigers. Two exciting new prospects down at reserve this season. We obviously have Jack Smith, the son of former Grand Prix star Andy Smith, who I remember watching numerous times over the years. If he's got a touch of his dad's talent, he'll be half decent. And we've also got Tom Perry. I think we saw him a couple of years ago at Ashfield, and we were hugely excited by him then. It's great to see him finally make the step up into Tigers colours. Derek, your thoughts on the lineup so far?
A strong start. I think the first 5 named riders for the Tigers 2017 appear to be in collection, offer quite a lot of excitement. I think is promised next season. Let's have a little trip through the team, Brian, and chat about the riders. Glasgow fans at home, send us your comments. What's your thoughts on the 5 signed riders to date? You mentioned Aaron up top, and I think he was probably the first rider to be re-signed. The skipper of the Tigers, his 3rd season with the club in 2017, and I think year on year Aaron has steadily got better, Brian.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I spoke to Aaron on a weekly basis. He's just a great captain, a great guy to have around the club. I think that's why Stuart has brought him back. I think I saw Aaron about when he probably first came over here and was racing for Edinburgh at the time. I saw him around Ashfield, and actually, if you're watching Aaron, don't take offence to this, but I thought he was fairly average. I'm really impressed with how he's pushed on in the last few years. I think even when Stuart signed him a couple of seasons ago, people were questioning, is he the kind of rider we want to be bringing to the club? I think he's proved all of us wrong and more. He's a great guy to have around, but just spectacular to watch around Ashfield, and I think that's the most important thing. We've got a guy there who can go on and beat the best around here and do it from behind as well, which is even better. And
I think he's good around the pits as well, which is obviously why Stuart has appointed him as the captain of the side, and that's worth some points, especially when there's young riders around the Glasgow pit bays as well. So if Aaron's a strong start to the Glasgow lineup in 2017, next to be announced was the return of one Richard Lawson. And I think, looking at 2016, I think Richard might agree with me that it may not have been his best season. It was a strong season, it was a consistent season, but if I know Richard Lawson, I think he was probably a little bit disappointed to have lost that number 1 race jacket during the course of the year.
Yeah, I think so. The biggest thing I've noticed of Richard in the last couple of years, I think he did have a little bit of a weight on his shoulders, that sort of getting the duck off his back, winning the trophy for the team. Last season he maybe didn't have the best end to the season. I think he sort of proved everyone wrong, or he sort of made amends for that at the end of this year with the KO Cup match. I mean, he was just sensational in that final, along with all the other guys. And I think that will really push him on next season on an 8.22, I think it is, average. I think that's a steal. Around Ashfield, there's few people who will beat him. And away from home, he can produce some big results. I think one that stands out for me was Ipswich away last year, when I think him and Richie Worrell just took on Danny King and co and beat them well. So I think Richard, again, on his average, he is a 10 point rider on a normal day, and I think he'll be looking to push on and get back to that sort of 9 point mark next season. I think he's capable of it.
Apart from racing here for Glasgow, of course, we're accustomed to seeing Richard pop up on the Sky Sports screens at Elite League level, as was, and of course he made the final of the League Riders Championship at Sheffield. So by any stretch of the imagination, it wasn't a bad season for Richard, but I just think that within his own mind he knows that he's got a little bit more to come, hopefully.
Yeah, I think he's got a big season in him, a really big season. I think we're still to see that, but I don't think it's too far on the horizon. For
me, Brian, the next announcement in the team was not a surprise, certainly a pleasant surprise when it was confirmed, but I think given the reduction in the points limit this season, 42.5 down to 40, some people may have thought that the Stuart might go for a slightly different team building strategy, and but to announce Richie Worrell as I say 38th leader, having finished the season as number 1 for the club, is something short of sensational. I think so. Yeah, he was rightly voted. I think the man of the season really at the end of the season awards. The way he kicked on last season was tremendous. I think there's no one really better in full flight than Richie Worrell around Ashfield. He really gives us something different. I think he's a reliable gaiter. He can, he's been there and done it before, and he's still young. He's still got a lot of improvement in him. I think he just kind of needed that support that he perhaps didn't get elsewhere. He needed that club behind him, that sort of settled scene. He maybe struggled with it a few seasons back, and I think he's got that at Glasgow, and I think this is the perfect platform for him to kick on. And again, on an 8.5 point average, I think it's a steal. A reminder, if we needed it, that Richie started last season not even as a heat leader. He was 4th in the team averages at the start of 2016. Obviously he made a big impression home and away and climbed to pull on that number 1 race jacket. And I know Richie's got a lot of faith in his own ability, quite rightly too, talented young lad, and I think we may get to see the best of him in Glasgow's colours this season. Definitely,
yeah, and a good sense of humour as well. He's good to have around the pits again. He gives a good balance to the guys that are slightly quieter around the place as well.
Just a quick side, Brian, before we look at the next couple of riders that are lined up for the Tigers. Lots of comments out there in Facebook land. Thank you very much for all the kind comments thus far. And could I ask you, just to make life a little bit easier for us, if you want to comment on any particular team, be it Glasgow, Redcar, Newcastle, or whoever, could you prefix your post by the name of the team, and it'll just help us to pick out some of the comments that you're making. Okay, Brian. So we've covered off the heat leader positions in the team, and you mentioned in your summary earlier on that we've got a couple of young lads who have been built into the team this year. Tom Perry is a rider who we've seen here at Ashfield. I think 2014 Tom made a couple of guest appearances and impressed. And I remember talking to Tom and interviewing at the time, and Glasgow was a club I think which Tom would acknowledge was on his radar in terms of potential linking up with. A couple of seasons later, Bob's your uncle and Tom's a Tiger.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting one actually for next season. I think his average is 3.7 something. Last year he was up to 5.5 points, sort of by May time for Peterborough. He's actually at number 3 at one stage, which really shows the potential he's got, and that was just in a couple of months. Okay, I know the averages can be funny, and if you have a good spell, they can warp them slightly. But I think it just shows that he is a rider capable of causing some damage at this level. Again, to get him on that kind of average, I think is a real steal. I think he's starting to grow now. He's been at Birmingham for a couple of seasons. He's done a lot there, and I had a look at his CV before we came on, and he's won something I think almost every year that he's been riding, which I always like to see. It's a sign of a rider who has been part of successful teams in the past. He knows what it takes to go and win trophies, and I think we all remember the way he attacked the Ashfield track as well a couple of seasons ago. I think that's important. He's not scared to go out there and strut his stuff on this kind of fast race circuit.
And I believe Tom was the skipper of Birmingham Brummies last season, and that brings some responsibilities, and hopefully that suggests that Birmingham as a club had sufficient faith in Tom that I think he's got all the equipment. I think he's got the talent, and hopefully in Glasgow's colours in 2017, Tom the Tiger can rise to.
I spoke to Tom earlier this week, and he actually is a sort of day job. He does banking, so it shows he's got a sensible head on his shoulders as well. Perhaps not the sort of average day job for your normal speedway rider, but that's what he does during his day. I
didn't know that. Tom Perry, I'm also in banking, so you and I can have a chat about fiscal stuff at some point. Okay, and the fifth Tiger to be named up until tonight, at least, is an even younger rider, Jack Smith, who was here, I think, for the Knockout Cup final and had a look around with Dad Andy, Grand Prix superstar Andy. And I think Jack's down under in holidaying in Western Australia, obviously prepping himself nicely for a season in Scotland. But Jack comes with a good pedigree. So look at the Birmingham scorers this season. Jack, predominantly at reserve, has scored some big numbers in the colours of Birmingham, and probably it's a beneficial thing too that he already knows Tom Perry very well.
Absolutely, yeah. I spoke to Jack a little while ago as well, and he, towards the end of last season, I think he went out and did 2 meetings at Bellevue, but it had actually been on the same night. And he was going out and beaten. He was at number 6, I think, and he was going out and beaten, the home number 1. I think Matt Williamson was there. He actually beat Tom Perry as well, bizarrely, on that night. So he's going out and beaten guys that are riding above his level at the moment, and in the Premier League too, which bodes well for us when we're going to tracks like Workington and these kind of places that do have these National League riders at reserve. It means that we've got a guy there who has already gone out and beaten them really in his first season in the sport. Why can't he do it again at this level? I'm sure that's what Stuart has looked at when he signed him. The encouraging thing also is that you hear good reports about him as well. I think when you look on the forums and social media in the build up to teams announcing their riders, he was one of the ones that was bandied about by teams as on their wish list. I think there was an assumption almost that Jack might end up here or one of the bigger clubs in the league. And that shows that people have a lot of faith in his potential. And I think when we did when he did sign on the dotted line, I was really pleased to see.
And of course on a 2-point average. So with the league restructure and the points limit change this season down to a 40-point ceiling, all clubs of course are permitted to bring in a reserve at a 2-point average, and that in itself must take some of the pressure off young Jack, I would imagine, because riders do judge themselves by their performance and how they compare against their starting average.
That if he goes out and gets a second place in his reserve heat, he's matched his average. So there's not a lot of pressure on these guys at that level, and I think that's good. I think that change needed to be made. There was guys coming in on 3 points and maybe averaging only half of that. The 2-point limit gives them a chance to go out there without much pressure. They can leave that to the older guys in the team, like we've got that sort of heat leader trio that can go out and take the pressure off of young Jack's shoulders. And I know he's also taking the winter seriously, spending a lot of it in Australia. He's racing down there as well. He's really serious and desperate to get going.
Brian, I know we're going to take a look at, we're going to trip through all of the other teams in the Championship and have a look at their lineups as they presently stand. A couple of comments coming in randomly. So John Richmond, thanks John, you're calling out that Sheffield are building a strong looking side and that Redcar looks stronger than last season. And I can see another comment from Jimmy Culbert. Good evening, Jim. Redcar Bears have got a nice looking side. Jason Garrity and Ben Backer spearheading their team. And as I say, we're going to trip through the teams as they stand shortly. Just a question, Brian, with the reduction in the points limit from 42.5 to 40, I think initially a lot of supporters around the country may have assumed or believed that was a watering down of the strength of the Championship, Premier League as was. But looking at the teams, as we will do shortly, I actually think it's flipped the other way. I actually think a lot of the teams look a lot more potential packed than perhaps they did last season.
Yeah, I think promoters are having to really think this season about who they are signing. It perhaps is meaning that the best riders are getting snapped up because there aren't many team places. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it works. A lot of teams are either going for that sort of strength and depth, a top man at sort of 7 points perhaps, which maybe gives them a 5-point rider at reserve, and some like ourselves going for someone at sort of an 8 or 9 point average to sort of spearhead the team. It is really making people think. It's interesting to see the real change there has been in some of the team lineups. Teams seem to be sort of almost refreshing themselves. There's only 1 or 2 that are really sticking with the sort of tried and tested team from last year. And I think that's going to be really interesting. It's just shook it up a little bit and makes it a bit more intriguing going into the next season. Okay,
let's move on. So we've already mentioned around about 7:30 we hope we're going to announce the next Glasgow signing, so not too long to wait for that. We also wanted to announce tonight and confirm to Glasgow supporters that it's not only on track, that there's lots of investment and lots of effort taking place around Glasgow, It was announced post the AGM that Glasgow are moving to a Saturday night race night, Saturdays at 7 o'clock, and of course that brings regular nighttime racing, and the club are very aware of some changes that they need to make to help support nighttime racing and make it a little bit slicker perhaps, not least of which I can confirm that the Tigers have placed an order now for a brand new fence at Ashfield. It's going to be a polyfoam fence, and the thinking behind that, apart from the expense and the investment of it, the thinking behind it is it should take less maintenance, certainly during meetings and post incidents. We've seen at the Knockout Cup final, for example, Brian, there was a bit of a delay while some falls were dealt with. We've lost quite a number of fence panels, I think, in the old style air fence this season. So the Glasgow management again showing their determination to take Glasgow onto the next level, and a significant investment in buying that polyfoam fence, Brian.
Absolutely. We see it at Berwick. We've seen that in action for a couple of years now, the sort of similar facility, and they've obviously been able to host things like FIM meetings as well. I think it's the way forward, really. I think it's sort of taking it to the next step. The air fence coming in was a big investment at the time, and it was, that was a big step in itself. It kind of helped improve the rider safety, but I think this is almost the next stage, really, and it's good to see that we are sort of taking the lead on that.
And as if that wasn't enough, nighttime racing, of course, also requires some lighting, and I think Glasgow management would acknowledge there were some deficiencies perhaps in the quality of the lighting around the perimeter of the track for the Knockout Cup final. It was more than adequate and the riders were more than safe, but moving forward, given that we're moving to regular nighttime racing, the club have also invested and committed to a big upgrade in the lighting, the track lighting, and I think the dialogue and the work to deliver that to the stadium is quite an advanced stage, and there is an agreed lighting design which is now in place. Again, good news, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not the only thing that we're lighting up Ashfield next year. We have, you might have heard mention of it at the dinner dance, we have also coming in a huge TV screen, which I'm told is around the size of a double-decker bus, which means you'll be able to see all the lovely riders' faces on there while they're doing interviews and things like that during the meeting, and various other things. Unfortunately, it might mean you have to see me and Derek in sort of super size, but we'll sort of we'll move on from that just now. But it's another exciting investment, and it just adds to the race day experience, I think.
The size of a double-decker bus. I can foresee Kiss Cam at Ashfield Stadium in 2017.
God forbid.
So just a couple of comments coming in. Hayley McNeil, thanks Hayley, good evening to you. Looking forward to Saturday night racing. Jimmy Colbert, once again, likes the polyfoam fence. Fantastic. Richard Davison, there goes the pickup of the wife. She can get a taxi home because he's now engrossed in Tigers Live. Angus McMillan, great work Glasgow Tigers, thank you for the comments. Doug Nicholson, great news about the fence. And again, as I mentioned, I made the point earlier on, the Glasgow management are very conscious that the show has to be much slicker on a Saturday night. Okay, I think we've probably sufficiently covered off the Tigers team to date. Let's move it on, Brian. So, picking up from the AGM, which took place back in November time, I think it was, yeah. Some changes were announced, and we're going to focus on the Championship. And there, of course, is the very first change. No longer the Premier League, it's now the Championship. And for me, that resonates a little bit better, and for new fans, maybe is a bit more meaningful.
Yeah, I think it almost ties into that football style, names and things like that. It's something that Scottish football followed on from English football, and it almost seems like a natural progression. The interesting things are, obviously, there's been a slight reduction in the number of teams in the Premier League. We don't have the League Cup anymore, sorry, the Championship. I need to get used to saying that. We don't have the League Cup anymore, it's now the Championship and the KO Cup, which means that teams are riding each other home and away twice. So we'll see teams coming perhaps earlier in the season and then later in the season. It might, there might be a change in their lineups throughout that period. That'll be quite interesting. It'll sort of mean that the home matches will be extremely important, actually, because you can't just take care of a team early in the season and then they strengthen later on. You're going to have to deal with them again later in the season. And we've also got the likes of the KO Cup. Obviously, the Tigers want to go and defend that as well.
Do you mean this, Brian?
I do mean that. The very shiny trophy that's sitting in between us there, Derek. So yeah, there's some interesting changes there. I think that's what the sport needed. Obviously, there was a vast sort of overhaul of the average system as well, and the way the two leagues tie into each other. There's obviously promotion and relegation as well, which is actually another interesting facet to it all. Is that if we went on and won the league next year, we could be facing someone in the Premiership to to go up to the top league, which could be really interesting.
Of course, that's been trialled before. Not so many seasons ago, Edinburgh found themselves in that very position to potentially elevate into the top tier. But again, it shows a commitment, I think, perhaps a newfound commitment from British Speedway promoters to reinstate promotion and relegation. Talking of the Knockout Cup, Brian, and you did nicely mention it in your preamble, Tigers fans, I don't know if any of you have yet to buy the Knockout Cup double disc DVD of our Knockout Cup success. If you haven't bought it yet, or if you intend to get it ordered for Christmas, please go ahead and do that. We will post on the Facebook page a link and some details about how to get that. It's £16 well spent, I can assure you.
Absolutely.
Relive all the excitement that happened outside here just a few weeks ago.
And talking of excitement, we've obviously got a fairly big meeting coming up at Ashfield later in the season. Obviously, that was part of another one of the decisions that was made at the AGM, which is the Individual Riders Championship, which I think is what it's being called. I don't think they can quite call it the Championship Riders Championship. So we've got, we're going to have all the top men in the league coming to Ashfield. It's usually around about September time, and it's always a well attended meeting, but it's usually fantastic. You've got all the top guys there, vying for the top trophy, individual trophy in the country. That's a major sort of scoop really for the Tigers.
It's a huge feather in Glasgow's camp, and not so many seasons ago, we a couple of times we staged the pairs meeting here at Ashfield, and I know there are some concerns by perhaps more southern-based Speedway supporters of the distance to travel to Glasgow, and maybe some concerns legitimately about the size of the crowd, etc. But I would suggest that no one has to have any fear about how very well that meeting will be promoted, and I know that Glasgow will make a huge success of it come September. Yeah,
and I know the pairs meetings as well were just a great spectacle. We got big crowds too for those, and even though Glasgow won, I think everyone went away having seen Glasgow as a great racetrack, a great facility, and that was back in probably 10 years ago now. We've obviously really upgraded the facility since then. I don't think there are too many tracks better placed to host such a meeting.
Keep the comments coming through, folks. Just another couple that I've managed to eyeball. A few comments. Chloe Lamb, for example, can't wait for Saturday night racing. Nicky Hibbard, looking forward to seeing all the investment when the season starts. Phil Lanning, good evening, Phil. Speedway finally enters the 21st century with Glasgow Speedway. That must be a comment about you and I, Brian.
I think so, yeah.
Who else have we got? Gordon McDonald, a taxi for Henderson every Saturday. That must be a reference to Mr. Grant Henderson, I would imagine.
Yeah, so we're just going to move on now and have a wee look at the championship teams one by one. I think we'll do it in alphabetical order, and we'll just have a look at who's signed for who we sort of fancy has been the challengers this season. Obviously starting with Berwick Bandits.
The Berwick Bandits, an alphabetical trip through the championship rivals to Glasgow this season. And I think first things first, before the team pops up on screen, there's been a bit of a revolution behind the scenes at Berwick this season. Messrs Havelock and Scott and Jamie Courtney, almost forgot your name, Jamie, are now running the show, in effect, promoters and team manager respectively down at Shielfield, and I think that new broom probably is reflected in the new look team.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Lewis Bridger's signing was a few eyebrows raised at that, good and bad. I think he's obviously a capable rider, and I think we all know that at this level he should be the kind of an out and out number one. I think that's it's quite an exciting signing for the Bandits. He's usually quite spectacular on a bike as well, which is always good to see.
Certainly look forward to seeing Lewis Bridger race around Ashfield next season. Kevin Doolan, who has been the skipper of the Bandits for a few seasons. Kevin, a bit of a journeyman in his Speedway career, but he seems very settled these days at Berwick, and I think the Bandits probably know what to expect from Kevin.
I think the two that stand out for me really are the two I'm most intrigued to see really, other than Lewis Bridger. Dimitri Berger, obviously we know him very well at Glasgow. Real interesting to see how he got. It should be the kind of track that he loves.
Yes.
At Shielfield. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. He really pushed on at Sheffield this year. Can he keep going and keep that trajectory on track? The other one is Luke Chessel. We obviously saw Luke around Ashfield. You probably remember at home a couple of times early in the season, guesting for Danny Ayres, and I think we were all really impressed by Luke. He liked the kind of big sweeping bends, and again he should fit in quite well at Berwick, particularly on that low average, and I think it's quite an interesting reserve pair they've got. They could be fairly potent at home. It just the obvious concern with many is how they'll go away, but Danny Gapmeyer's had a bit of an introduction to the sport already, and I think he should be well placed to push on next year.
I know Scott Courtney thinks highly of Danny Gapmeyer and his potential based on some of his performances, certainly on the continent. And Luke Chessel, as you mentioned, is a rider who we know quite well here at Glasgow. He guested for us just last season, and a likeable lad, and a very capable, steady rider to have at reserve, I suggest.
And finally, just to mention Liam Carr as well. I think everyone's been impressed by the way Liam's pushed on the last couple of years. He had a great season last year. I think he's now up to 4.5 average. That just shows how well he did in a tough league, and it's great for the Bandits to have a local lad in the team as well.
Absolutely. Okay, next up alphabetically is our arch rivals in the East, Edinburgh Monarchs. And of all the team building activity to date, as at 7 o'clock when we came on air tonight at least, Edinburgh, I've got the least number of riders confirmed at the moment. But knowing the Edinburgh management, they will be working on a pretty strong lineup once again.
Absolutely, yeah. I think they probably couldn't have started too much better, perhaps, other than Sam Masters returning. I think Ricky Wells could be a really shoot shining around there. I think both these guys, really, Eric Riss included, will up their averages round Armadale. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You know, already they're looking quite tough to beat round Armadale, which is what they always build themselves to be, and then they try and pick up points on the road as well. I think if they can bring Sam Masters back in as well, that's looking like a pretty strong 1-3-5 for Edinburgh. It then just depends on how they get their sort of reserve berths and things filled. But it'll be interesting to see, and I think everyone's keeping a close eye on how they're going.
I think Eric Rees had a strong second season in British Speedway, just a sub 7 point average, and Ricky Wells is a bit of a track expert around Armadale.
Absolutely.
Okay, now here's our side, Brian. Next up, the Ipswich Witches, who announced their full lineup a week or so ago, and I think for me probably the standout side in the division at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The top 5, I don't think you'll see many better than that, and as the season progresses that might change, but obviously you're looking at the averages at the moment and who they've managed to fit in and who's got potential to add to those averages, and I think at the moment they look really strong. I like the sign of Kyle Newman. I think he's got a lot to come. He was unlucky with injuries and illness last year. I think Kyle could kick on and become a 7 or 8 point rider in this league quite easily, to be honest.
We've seen what Kyle can achieve at Elite League level or Premiership level as it's now called.
Absolutely.
A question mark at all over Rory Schlein at Championship level?
Not too much for me. I don't think he's come back from bad injuries in the past and still proven to be a fairly steady rider at what was the Elite League level. I think he's a good signing on a 7 odd point average. He's got experience as well. You're not just relying on him. He's got Danny King above him, and you've got Cavati and Newman as well, who really in this league should be heat leaders. Heaps, I suppose, he's got to push on a little bit, probably riding at number 2. I think he's got a lot of potential. He hasn't quite achieved that in the last couple of years. But I think if Rory can sort of maintain or just up his average slightly, I think they're on to a winner really, and I'd be surprised if we don't see them in the top 4.
Because Rory, of course, won the Elite League Riders' Championship not so many seasons ago. Yeah, and then very interesting, very solid looking Witches squad. Dan Stennett, Witches to win, says Dan. Time will tell. Okay, moving on, Newcastle Diamonds. Now this is a team who we've seen most recently race here at Ashfield, of course, in the Knockout Cup final. And at first glance, when you look at their 1 to 7, not a lot of change since last season.
No, almost none really. I think obviously Connor Cole's been added at the bottom end there. They had to make some kind of change. They probably wouldn't have been able to fit their entire team in again. I think the return of Steve Worrell and Robert Lambert is exciting for Diamonds fans. Robert Lambert's only going to keep getting better. I don't think there's any doubt that this might well be his last season at this level if he continues the progression he's made in the last couple of seasons. Steve Worrell is a reliable rider everywhere he goes, extremely good gaiter. I think it's a fairly solid looking outfit. I think obviously Danny Phillips had a fairly slow introduction to this level last year. I think he was averaging less than 2, but with the year's experience under his belt, who knows what he'll go on to achieve. And Connor Coles, I think he's obviously come from good Speedway pedigree again. I think he's had a few guest appearances in the Premier League at the end of last year, and I think he sort of showed up fairly well. I think it's his time to step into this league, and if they can get those two going, I think again they're a fairly sturdy looking outfit.
Predominantly the same team, Brian. He finished 3rd in the final table last season. Of course, he reached the Knockout Cup final. So.
Plenty of potential there.
Okay, and if Diamonds are reasonably unchanged, then Peterborough Panthers are completely different. They've brought quite a few new faces so far to the showground.
The most recent obviously being Jack Holder. I think a rider who most teams would love to have. He's obviously got that pedigree. His brother has gone on to achieve some pretty superb things in the sport, and I think everyone's seen him as the next big thing. Really,
yes.
He showed up well in the Australian Grand Prix as well when he got his chance there. So, right, round the showgrounds, round those sweeping bends, I think Jack could be a really good rider there next year. I think at the moment it looks as though he's almost shaping up as their number one, which is an interesting tactic. They're going for someone who's a couple of points below some of the other number ones, perhaps strength and depth they're aiming for. But again, he's got so much potential, and backed by a few, seasoned campaigners.
Absolutely.
there, I think, below them.
Ulrich Ostergaard, of course, is perhaps one of the more veteran riders of the second tier, but Ulrich, of course, was the league riders champion only a season or two ago.
Still capable.
Absolutely, and considered a bit of a all-Wotan track expert as well. Simon Lambert, nice to see Simon announced so quickly in a starting side, and I think Simon has got some growth in him. He's been around a few seasons now, and hopefully can deliver for the Panthers.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that in every single one of these teams, you're seeing the guys that are coming in at reserve, the guys that have been in the National League, like Tom Bacon here for the Panthers, and you're saying that I'm quite excited to see him in the league next season. They've maybe had small chances, they've maybe had guest appearances. I think Tom raced for us and against us a couple of times last year and seemed to acquit himself fairly well. All of these guys that are coming into the teams, obviously it's a requirement, but I think every single one of them you're looking at and saying, I'm quite excited to see how he gets on next season.
But for me, the remaining two signings for Peterborough will determine what sort of season they're going to be
crucial.
Okay, now here's an interesting team which was only announced last night. Redcar Bears have announced their 1 to 7, and for me, this is a potentially good side, a good solid side.
Yeah, if nothing else, they'll be absolutely spectacular to watch. I think Jason Garrity and Ben Barker. Charles Wright likes a good race as well. They've got Richard Hall, his long track experience. There's sort of 3 or 4 guys in there who will be, vying for the space around the boards every week. Never mind, the first place. It's an interesting one because, so far in their careers, I wouldn't say that while Jason possibly hasn't quite reached the kind of point where he's been an out-and-out number one yet, Ben hasn't, and has kind of fallen away from that a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how both of them, those get on. If they both kick on and reach their potential, then the world's their oyster really for this.
I suspect Jason Garrity has been desperate to be an out number one for this. He was almost there with Sheffield, but having Simon Stead above you in averages is certainly no shame. And I think this could be a big season in the making for Jason.
I like the signing of Charles Wright. I've always liked Charles since his days when he came to Ashfield for that brief spell. He's kind of kicked on, and again he's in a sub-7 average, I believe. That seems crazy when he's been so consistent over the years. He's been in the league winning teams with Somerset. He's raced in the Elite League, quite well really. Seen him on Sky and giving guys a good race on plenty of occasions. So
Jonas B. Anderson, Brian, we've seen race a number of times at Ashfield.
Absolutely.
And a classy rider.
There's a real strength and depth here, I think Ellis Perks, obviously, we'll wait and see how he gets on. He's got a big season ahead, I think. But I think this is really interesting. I think they pulled a few cats out of the bag when they announced that.
Absolutely. Well done to the new management at Redcar. Next up, Scunthorpe. Now here's an interesting lineup in so much as this is an unchanged 1 to 7 from the side that finished the 2016 season.
Yeah, in many respects that was almost expected of them. I think there weren't too many surprises when they announced that, but it's an interesting tactic. I think when they announced it, I couldn't really remember the last time that would have happened in British Speedway.
Absolutely.
If anyone can remember the last time, please let us know.
Drop a note.
I think it's a really interesting tactic. They were doing fairly well towards the end of last season. I think that's the idea behind it, is that they're going to, keeping those guys together is going to be beneficial. They don't have to get to know each other again. You've not got young guys having to learn the track.
It has some advantages from that point of view, doesn't it? There's no settling in period.
Yeah, I think it's a big season for a couple of guys in there. I think Ryan Douglas starting at number 1, there's a bit of pressure on his shoulders. I think he's capable, but whether he can do it this season and push on to be that out and out number 1 that we sort of know he's kind of capable of being, I think it will be interesting. And Michael Pam-Toff could be a real sort of steal in his average.
Talking of enigmas, Michael Pam.
Yeah, and again, he's since those days that he was bizarrely handed an Elite League spot with Bellevue on a 3-point average, I think it was a couple of years ago, he's kind of become, he's almost kind of stepped into a heat leader role himself, and I think people are really kind of keen to see him push on and have that kind of consistency throughout the season that he's not really had yet.
And Carl Wilkinson, of course, has been around the block a few times, has Carl, but even as recently as last year, he was mixing it in the elite league.
Yeah, again,
doing a good job.
that elite league experience for guys like him, Lewis Kerr as well. Obviously, he had a sort of steady season coming back from injury, but these kind of two guys are racing in the elite league regularly, or have been in the last couple of years. That again, it proves that they're capable of going out and beating the best. And I think what Scunthorpe could probably do with is a season without injury. Really, I think they've not had their fair share of luck in recent years. If they can keep this 1 to 7 together, I think, yeah, there's potential there.
Just a timely comment from Paul Johnson. Good evening, Paul. Thanks for your comment. He's suggesting Ryan Douglas is injured and might be out for as long as 12 weeks.
Really? Well, that's going to be a significant blow if that's the case. It'll be interesting if he makes it back in time for the start of the season.
I'm sure the Aussie sunshine will help the recovery.
Absolutely.
Okay, penultimately, Sheffield. Now, am I being unkind, Brian, to suggest that Sheffield are the epitome of a team built for home advantage?
Perhaps, yeah. I think you maybe are being a little bit unfair. I like the look of the Sheffield team. I think Josh Krzyzonic, we know him well. I think probably most teams would have loved to have him in his team. He is really a outstanding number one now. Lassie Bier, a bit of an enigma, like you said, with some of the other riders. Yeah, I think he's got, if he can have a good season, Lassie Bier should be pushing 7, 8, 9 points every week. Yeah. And Kyle Howarth really pushed on last season, didn't he?
Did.
I think he had the season that we've all been waiting for a while. I think if he can continue that, that's going to be really interesting. And I think what Sheffield have got below Josh is sort of 4 riders so far that can really significantly improve on their averages. I think that's what they're aiming for. Josh Bates should be better than a 5.0.
Kyle Howarth, Josh Bates, I think both proved towards the end of last season in the respective leagues that they're big occasion riders, and Sheffield, I'm sure, will benefit from having that in the tank this season. I
think when they're coming to Ashfield this season, it's going to be an exciting meeting. There's a few in there that could give us a right hard time.
So Josh, welcome back to the Tigers, but the wrong ones. Okay, and then finally, of our tour of the championship lineups, Workington Comets, another team put together fairly recently, and I guess the headline news from the Comets is the return to Derwent Park of Craig Cook.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see what people out there think of this team. Actually, I've seen sort of a fair 50-50 split. Some people who think it's an outstanding team, and I can see why. Craig Cook is a massive attraction at the top end of the team there. Some others who think that, you know, they're perhaps going to struggle towards the bottom end. It's so hard to tell. I think a lot depends on the return of Ty Proctor to this country. He's had a season or two out now. He's got to step up and really be the third heat leader. Thomas Jorgensen's obviously a great rider. He's got potential to go and challenge Cook. But I think what they do need is sort of Roynan and Campton in there to really fill in the gaps. I think these two guys have been around for a while, and they've had plenty of potential for a long time, but they haven't kicked on in the way that we thought. We saw them both at Glasgow years ago, and I think we both thought they were extremely exciting talents at that time. And they've kind of been a bit hit or miss. Of course, extremely unlucky with injury and the visa situation, which hit Mason as well. But maybe next season is the season that they need. They've had that kind of year at Workington this year. Maybe they just need to now kick on, and a bit of stability for them both might be good.
Brian, so Richard Attenborough's coming on to BBC One the next hour or so. So we're getting a little bit of comment on Facebook about who's the next Tiger to be announced this evening. So let's move on to that, if we may. Now, we did say in our preamble and our promotion of tonight's event we were going to announce the next rider to sign from Glasgow, but whilst you were in makeup before we came on air, Brian, I received a telephone call to suggest that we can no longer do that.
What do you mean? We can't let the fans down and disappoint them.
Well, what I'm saying is we're not allowed to announce a rider tonight, but that's for a very good reason, because it does mean that we've been authorised by Tigers HQ to announce the next 2 riders who will complete the Tigers 2017 team.
Fantastic.
So, without further ado, let's not keep people waiting any longer. The 6th rider to be announced as a Tiger for 2017. If anyone's got a drum, roll it please.
Yep. So, he was born on 4th September 1996. He's from Kotka in Finland, and he is the Flying Finn, Nike Luna.
Nike the bike is a Tiger once again in 2017, and Facebook's about to go wild, I'm sure. Yeah, so Nike brought something special, I think, to Ashfield this season. Maybe took him a little while to get dialed in fully. He had some injury concerns this season because he had to come back and recover from injury twice. But towards the end of the season, he had the beating of pretty much anyone around Ashfield.
Yeah, it's hugely exciting. I think the rider that everyone wants to see again in Tigers colours next year, just because he's so exciting. He just doesn't have any fear. You know, each race he goes into, you know, there's something exciting that's going to happen. And the fact he's a club asset as well, we want to try and develop him. I think he's got huge potential over and above what he's sitting on at the moment in terms of his average. And he's such a lovable character as well. He's so chirpy. You know, even he had his injuries last year, he still came along and, you know, and put in the effort for the Tigers. You know, showing us his burnt hand and things like that underneath his glove. But yeah, he's still smiling away in the pits, and I think he fits in well. He's kind of a very happy-go-lucky character, but hugely talented.
And you spoke to Nike this week, Brian?
I did, yeah. I got a message from Nike today for Tigers fans, so let me just read it out to you. So he had to say to you guys at home, "I'm super happy to be back with the Tigers. I love to be there, and this coming year I have so much more to give. What can I say? I can't wait to come back home to you all." And I think that says it all. He's calling Ashfield home already, which is fantastic to see.
Well, lots of positive reaction out on Facebook. We've got a lot of yeses and yeses and lunas and sick rider and go Nike. Mary Keane says go Nike. Myra Cofford, you're happy, a yay. And Hayley McNeil once again, yay Nike. So a positive response from the Glasgow faithful on the news that Nike Luna has joined the Tigers septet for 2017.
Absolutely, and don't forget you can enjoy all of Nike's exploits, of course, with the special 3-hour DVD that has been produced for our sort of review of our season, which I'm sure you can pick up on all the
3-hour DVD, did you say, Brian?
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, it's got action packed. It's got interviews. I think Danny Ayres is on there speaking. You know, action from the season, highlights, etc. So definitely don't miss that for your Christmas stockings.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more about, we'll put up some details on the Facebook page about how to purchase your copy of that season review DVD, 3 hours long or thereabouts. We're going to have some action footage from every Tigers meeting, if home and away if we could achieve it this season, and there's some lengthy interviews of all the riders, including Danny Ayres, and Stuart Dixon and Jerry Facena as well have their say in reviewing 2016 and previewing next season. So welcome back, Nike. No one go away, because I'm just going to repeat what I said 2 or 3 minutes ago. We're going to announce the final Tiger to join the 2017 team. Now,
we wanted to be a wee bit interactive with this, and you know, something a little bit different. So we've actually got the final Tiger in the 2017 Jigsaw here in the studio at the Tigers Den at the Peugeot Ashfield Stadium.
There is an individual hiding in the background somewhere behind camera who is sitting there wearing a crash helmet and some goggles. I don't know who it is, but we will only bring him on set and reveal and introduce him to you if I can see on Facebook in the next 30 seconds lots of demand for it. So come on, Tigers fans, send your message, demand to know the final rider of your side for 2017.
Have you got your calculator out, Derek, to find out how much we've got left to play with in
I have
terms
no
of
idea, Brian. You are Mr. Stato. You're Stato.
I know it's not an awful lot. We've obviously got, you know, some top riders in there already with the 3 heat leaders. We've obviously got Nike. I think he's around 4.5 odd.
So it can't be Greg Hancock.
Unfortunately not. I think we're going to have to put Greg on hold for another season, or at least maybe a wee tactical switch during the season from Stuart and bring him in on a sub.
In this league is demanding. He's demanding. Who else have we got? Ailey McCrindle, come on Tigers. Neil McVeigh, who's the number 7? Jim Kelly, Mon Derek, get it done.
I think that's all you need to hear.
Right. Okay. Well, listen. Let's invite in the mystery rider to the Tigers live set. Mystery rider, come forth. Here is the mystery rider. Don't be knocking over that knockout cup, mystery rider. I like your Glasgow Tigers top. I don't know if that's a clue. You've got mirrored goggles, so I can't even see into his eyes. But Brian, I was thinking that I bet within 4 questions I could work out the identity of this guy. He's not allowed to talk. He can only nod or shake his head. But do you think I could have a go? Do you think I can do that? Do you think I can identify this guy by asking 4 cryptic questions?
You're suggesting there that you're clever, Derek, but I'll put my faith in you, and if you give it a go,
right,
I'll be impressed if you can do this.
Right. Okay. First things first, then. Mystery rider. Here's the first question. I've lost it. I've lost the first question. Here we go. Mystery rider. Have you ever ridden for Glasgow before? That's definitely an aye. That's definitely an aye, right? Ridden for Glasgow before. Mystery rider. I'm looking at you. I'm guessing you might be a young guy, a young rider. have you ridden in both National League and the old Premier League levels? Both. Both. So that's an aye. Both. Third question. We're in Scotland now. Are you from a land down under? From a land down under, so that's aye. Both. From a and land down under. I think I'm getting it. Final question, and this will sort them out. Are you fair-haired? He's not fair-haired.
Interesting.
I think I've got it. I think from my cryptic questions that I've got it. I don't know if anyone out there in Facebook land has it as well, but I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I'm going to ask this guy to reveal your identity, Mystery Rider. So, ladies and gentlemen in Facebook land, here is the final Glasgow Tiger for season 2017, and it is Dan Bewley. Dan Bewley, thank you very much for coming to Glasgow and joining us in the Tigers Live launch. First of all, welcome.
Yeah, good to see you, Dan.
My first question to you is, how are you? Because obviously you ended the season a little bit prematurely, bumped your head and bumped your shoulder. Are you fighting fit?
I'm all good now, and I've got my collarbone as well after the season, and it's all fixed up now as well, so I'm good to go.
Your dad's here as well, and I was talking to your dad earlier, so you've got your collarbone was pinned. Yeah. But you're a young lad and only 17, and you must heal quickly and heal well, I would imagine.
Hopefully so. Anyway, I haven't tested it too much, so hopefully it's fine.
What's the plans in terms of getting back aboard the bike?
I should be able to ride before one, hopefully next week or so, maybe a little bit longer.
Okay.
Start riding again.
Just wrap yourself up in a bit of cotton wool, yeah?
I wondered if we could maybe just get you, Dan, to talk us a little bit through about how you got into Speedway, because I think we all became accustomed to your name last season, but we didn't really know much about you, so maybe you could talk the Tigers fans through a little potted history of your career so far.
Yeah, I don't really know how I got into it, because Steve Lawson had a track near, it's just about a couple of miles away, and he had a motocross track next to it. I used to go on there, and it just sort of happened really. I don't really know how or why, it just did.
When did you first get on a Speedway bike?
It's about a year and a bit ago. Just the end of the summer nearly.
So here's a question for you. There's been in recent seasons, and Craig Cook's a good example of it. Lots of riders have migrated, I guess, from motocross into Speedway, and does that give you any advantage?
You do a lot more riding with Speedway only being 4 laps, so that's about a minute a race, and 4 races. It's not much compared to motocross, which is 20-minute races. You've got 2 or 3 of them. So it's a lot more riding, but I don't know. It's still a different game. But.
And last season, of course, 2016 was a big year for you. So you made your senior Speedway debut at National League level for Bellevue, and of course at rivals Edinburgh at the east of Scotland at Premier League level. When you reflect back on how you progressed and when you think back to what you achieved, are you quite content with what you managed to do last season?
I'm very happy with what I done. At the start of the year, I didn't score many points, but towards the middle and my end of the year, I was getting double figures near enough every match, Premier League. So I'm quite happy with it.
Well, Brian, I can tell you as well, Dan. Out in Facebook land, there's lots and lots of positive responses, lots of excited Tigers fans out there who are absolutely delighted that you have completed Tigers lineup for next season.
I was just going to say, do we want to maybe have a wee look at what Dan is capable of around Ashfield by probably his perhaps best moment around this track last season?
I'm going to ask you about this afterwards then.
Summers, the green line is on, up goes the tapes to play. Good start by Garcia. Summers gets some lift on the outside of Garcia, who's got the lead, and the 2 rebels nearly clash with each other there into the first turn.
White, Dan, isn't it?
The outside is full start, and the inside is Dan Bewley, with the Tigers on a 5-1. Looking for their third 5-1 in 4 races to pull further ahead. They'll be 8 points up if it stays like this. Bewley really throwing caution to the winds here as he goes around the outside on turn 1 and 2, trying to catch Fernando Garcia for second place, but Aaron Summers in the lead. Here comes Bewley around the outside. You wouldn't believe to watch him race that this young lad is only 16 years old. This is his first season in Speedway. As he's closing in on Fernando Garcia, he's all over the back of him. Look at him on the outside line there, throwing it right up to the air fence. Going to be close for second place. Aaron Summers, I think, has got this one sewn up. He's heading for his first win of the afternoon. He'll move on to 6 points, but Bewley He is not finished yet. Again, he goes for the outside line, trying to get a run right up against the air fence around the final turn, and he's got Garcia right on the line. He snatches second place from the Tigers man. My goodness, what a superb ride.
You little rascal, Dan, stealing that point from Coty. So Dan, Bellevue, who effectively own your contract, you know, they have deemed that they want to make use of you again in 2017, and why wouldn't they? And that precluded you from joining a Friday night track, and as soon as that information was available, I believe Stuart Dixon was quickly on the phone to you. Obviously you rode at Glasgow a couple of times in last season, and that was that clip that we seen when you guested for Somerset in a league victory here at Ashfield. Is it fair to say that it took you to that third meeting to get to grips with the place?
In my second meeting it was a little bit wet, but I didn't feel like I was riding badly, and then I just didn't have a very good start all meeting. But by the time the third meeting came, I started to get good starts and makes it a lot easier.
So the prospect of racing here on Saturday nights under floodlights is something that gets you excited?
Yeah, I think last year it was through the day, and I think Speedway looks a lot better at night time as well.
As someone who didn't have a lot of experience of Speedway before you come into the game, obviously the tracks in Britain are very different. You know, everywhere you go, Edinburgh compared to here is vastly different. But you seem to manage to adapt to big and small tracks. How did you achieve that?
Just I'm not really sure. Steve's track where to go on, it's quite a small track, but they say big tracks are easy to ride, so
yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Is there any element of using your motocross experience on a track like ours where you do have to kind of wind the throttle on a little bit more?
I'm not really sure. It's completely different, but it probably helps you a lot as well. I'm not really sure how it works.
Yeah.
A few comments on Facebook, Brian. Again, Dan's announcement has gone down equally as well as Nike Luna's. Scott Hardgood, Tigers are going to be unbeatable in 2017. Won the Tigers. Alan Frame says we've got an awesome team. Joe Scott, fabulous 1-7, well done to the management. Fiona Fairburn, welcome to the team in Scotland, says Fiona. I couldn't possibly comment. Alex Fairbairn, welcome to the den. And lots of positive comments out there. You can read them when you get home. Yeah.
If anyone's got a question for Dan as well, then let us know, and we'll put that to him before the end of the show. Obviously, you switched over from Edinburgh, but you know, and there is a big rivalry between the clubs. But I'm sure you've got a lot of fond memories. I mean, they ultimately handed you your chance in British Speedway.
Yeah, I had a really good time there, and there was some really good people there. And with Sam as a captain, I really liked him, and he was a really good person to have in the pits as well.
Yeah.
Here's a question I'd like to ask you. So, a lot of Speedway fans, and I'm certainly one of them, had made the trek down to the new Bellevue track in Manchester to take in just how good that place is. And you rode that fairly regularly. It looks like an awesome place to ride around. Can you tell us about lapping around the new Bellevue?
It's really wide. It's maybe twice as wide as a lot of tracks that you would go on, and it feels really big as well. It's a bit like Sheffield, but probably it feels twice as wide. If there's someone behind you, it's quite difficult to defend, but it's really good to ride, and it's really fast as well.
Ennis Lane's asking, Brian, you're Mr. Stat, so what's Dan's starting average?
I think 3.90, am I right? Around about that. You were on 4, I think, but as far as I'm aware.
3.9, Derek Danielski, thanks for confirming.
There we go.
Jack Besto, does he need a stunt double? You're far too tall to be Dan's stunt double, Jack.
Dan, obviously, you know, you're still a young guy yourself, and when talents like you break through, a lot of people are quick to kind of rush you into being the next Grand Prix star or the next World Cup star, that kind of thing. Do you have a chance, you know, in your teenage years to think about your career prospects in 10, 20 years' time, or do you just try and take it season by season? And do you have any thoughts on the kind of longer term goal for yourself?
I don't think you can go that far ahead. You never really know how you're going to do. Some riders, they can not really be going anywhere, but all of a sudden be amazing. You don't really know what's going to happen. You just take it as it comes, year by year and meeting by meeting, really.
Yeah. In terms of the sort of youth setup at British level, do you feel as though that's set up for success at the moment? Have you had any kind of interaction with that or any involvement with that so far?
I missed a lot of it with coming in a little bit late. Like I didn't do any of the junior meetings or anything like that, but I think Boltec's got a thing and a couple of other things like that. And I think if you watch some of the youth 125 and 500 races, there's quite a few of them. It's some good meetings as well with that.
Yeah. obviously there's been changes during the winter.
Talking.
There's been changes during the winter as well, and I'd be interested to get a rider's perspective on that. You've maybe not been in the game long enough to really notice a massive, impact on riders because you've only been doing it for a season. But what do you think about the changes that were made in the AGM? Do you think they're a positive step forward?
I don't really know if it's made much difference. I think in the Premier League with a 3-point reserve, now it's a 2-point reserve, but I think that's a good thing to have, and it gives a lot of riders a ride who possibly wouldn't have one if it wasn't because of it.
Brian, we're approaching the hour mark, believe it or not. Okay. Unbelievably, we're almost a full hour broadcast. A timely reminder, Night Luna and Dan Bewley complete Glasgow's 2017 team. A timely reminder that season tickets are already available for purchase. We will post again on Facebook page how you can purchase your tickets online. That would be a lovely Christmas present. And again, as we talked about earlier on, with 19 guaranteed home fixtures next season, even better value for money because the prices were fixed at 2016 levels.
Yeah, brilliant value for money. Yeah. Say time's got the better of us, so we'll just...
Before we do go, Brian, it is important, let's announce the Facebook like and share winner.
Of course, yeah.
To win £50 worth of Tigers merchandise, and congratulations to Paul Murray. Congratulations, Paul. Your £50 voucher will be winging its way to you. We'll get in touch with you. Thank you for participating, everyone. So time is just about caught up with us. Special thanks to Dan and Dan's dad, somewhere in the background, for journeying up to Glasgow this evening. It helped us make the Tigers Live launch all the more special to have you here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just want to say a quick thanks to our backroom team as well, Stephen Finlay and Ian Beattie, who are waving from behind the camera there. They're the guys behind keeping us going and making us look vaguely pretty, I suppose, tonight.
And thank you to everyone who's joined in for the full broadcast or even for part of it tonight. Without you, we wouldn't have anyone to talk to apart from ourselves. Thank you very much. Keep on top of Tigers' social media throughout the winter months, and we will give you details of the next Tigers Live. And meantime, I think it's only fair that we should wish everyone out there in Facebook land a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes, and we look forward to seeing you in 2017. Thank you for joining.
Good night.
Good night.